what's up, everybody? It is Wednesday, April 13th. So, you probably heard yesterday we had, I guess you would call it some kind of a terrorist attack, homegrown terrorist attack here in the New York City subways. And it's kind of, as bad as it really was miraculous because nobody was killed. Some dude came in, got on a crowded subway car, set off smoke bombs, started firing a 9mm pistol. People got shot, but nobody got killed. It was really incredible. But this always kind of worried me about the subway system. I've been living here my whole life basically, but I've traveled the subways and I've seen some crazy shit, especially back in the 80s. It's funny because I've been telling people recently, crime's definitely going back up here, but I've been telling people recently, this is nothing compared to the 80s. I saw some crazy shit go down here in the 80s, not just on the subways, but in the streets. I mean, there are neighborhoods now that you don't even think twice about walking around at night, but back in the 80s you couldn't. I'll give you one example. If you know New York City, like Soho, the art district downtown, I mean, that was a sketchy place back in the 80s. Anyway, after 9/11, it really worried me that there could be a terrorist attack on the subways. You get one of those. I thought, that would be the easiest thing in the world to do. One of these crazed suicide bombers, strapping a bomb on his chest, walking into the subway system, getting on a crowded car in Times Square or Grand Central Station or something like that at rush hour and blowing themselves up. It was really I thought it was incredible that never happened, but that was kudos to the NYPD and law enforcement. And the NYPD actually has agents abroad who are kind of like secret agents. They work for NYPD, but they collect data and intel in other countries, that could uncover terror plots or whatever. Anyway, it's never happened, luckily. But this thing happened, a homegrown guy. They just caught the guy today, a guy from Philly. He also had some connection with Wisconsin. I don't know what. He turned himself in, basically. Called Crime Stoppers on himself, turned himself in. At least the cops have the guy now. But I don't know, folks. New York's getting bad. This is my city, but I have to say it's getting really fucking bad. And I'm kind of at the end of my patience here with what's going on. I mean, it's really getting kind of bad. I still don't think it's as bad as the 80s, but I don't want it to get that bad. And anyway, so much for that. So we had a nice little bounce today in the market. We had first set of earnings coming in. I think one thing of note would be the banks, JP Morgan. That was a disappointment. Actually, they beat on top line revenue. There were some positive things, but the stock made a new 52-week low. Look, I get it, man. This is first quarter earnings. We've been through the inflation, and then the war started, and tons and tons of sanctions on Russia and how that affected global banking and the financial system and the lockout from SWIFT and all that other stuff. So I understand that. And I understand that, we've seen a huge correction in bank stocks, and I've said here on prior videos, I like bank stocks. I mean, I buy when they're cheap, and I have the patience to ride it out. JP Morgan beat on top line. They mentioned the obvious things that pulled them back. I mean, they had to set aside higher reserves. I don't mean bank reserves. I mean loss reserves for potential losses. Their investment banking revenue was way down. Okay, so deals, in the first quarter, there weren't as many deals, so investment banking revenue was way down. And some other stuff that was negatively impacted. But they had some positive stuff. I mean, Jamie Dimon said loan demand is very strong. They announced a stock buyback program, okay? And there was something else, I don't remember. Anyway, stock made a new 52-week low. You know, I'm long this stock. I'm long a lot of bank stocks, Citi, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Key Corp, Ally, what else? Zions, Umpqua. A lot of these Western banks I like. You know, when I travel out west, last summer I was out in Idaho. Zions, they're big. These regional banks out there, and these are growth areas of the country. I think these banks are going to do well, and you got to buy them, you know, when they're cheap right now. And just have patience. Look, I have a story. I mean, I got so many stories, but I mean, I had a guy, he was with me, you know, 3-4 years ago. We started buying some steel stocks when I think when Trump was putting the tariffs or something like that, and the expectation there was to help in pricing for domestic steel producers. So these stocks, they got hit. I mean, it was the opposite effect. They got hit, but they're, you know, like U.S. Steel. He had U.S. Steel. I think he bought it, I don't know, in the mid-20s or something like that, and it was going down, down, down. It got down, I think it got down around 17, and he got so pissed off and so angry at me, and he said, you know, what are you doing? You get me? I said, look, you know, the thing had like a book value of like 0.5. I mean, that's literally, I was trying to explain to him, like a book value like that is literally like, you know, you get $1 for 50 cents. Would you do that deal in the street? If somebody came along and said, look, I'll give you 20 bucks for 10 bucks. Are you going to do that deal? Yeah, you're going to do that deal. Well, that's basically what was the valuation of U.S. Steel. He sold out at the bottom, cursing me out, like fucking freaked out. Now it's at 36. I mean, you have to have patience. You can't sell value. You just got to be patient. Everything will turn around as long as there's value. Look, you don't. Here's a rule. And by the way, I have a course on my website on pitbulleconomics.com called MMT and Value Stock Selection. It's not that hard. I mean, you could do all this stock selecting by yourself. Just need a couple of you know, things to understand. And I teach that in a course. It's a video course. You could buy it. It's 99 bucks. You don't sell value. I mean, you just have to have some patience. Value will be realized in the marketplace over a period of time. Value will be realized in the marketplace over a period of time. You don't want to panic out. I mean, again, this was a classic case of a dude who couldn't keep his emotions in check. You know, he got all pissed off and he got all emotional, and he, you know, looking at that stock every day. And yeah, you know, there was a time when it was a grind, but you don't sell value. Look, if the stock was losing money, if the company was losing money, if it had a history of losses, but it didn't. It was profitable. It was making investment to modernize the business and make it more competitive. You got to look at things like that, and then you have to have patience. You can't freak out and just, you know, have this completely unhinged emotional reaction. Look at it now. So the same thing here with the banks. I give you the banking data every single week. I give it in much more detail to my subscribers. You know, that H8 report that the Fed releases every Friday that gives you all the banking data. I mean, I have long history databases on all of that stuff. I track that. I see the trends. I've been telling you guys about loan growth, and you know, there it was. Jamie Dimon said, hey, we're seeing good, strong loan growth. Now, you want to see those kind of assets. Don't forget, I've been talking about this almost every day. I mean, these banks have been loaded up with reserve assets that earn next to nothing. It's been a constraint on their ability to lend. Nevertheless, they have been lending. It shows you the level of capital, the capitalization of the banks, very, very solid right now that even with what we've seen, which was an unprecedented buildup in bank reserves, which is a constraint on lending, they've been able to expand their lending. So it says two things. Number one, their capital is very strong. And number two, the credit demand right now is very strong as well. This is a theme I've been going over on a daily basis now. I mean, capital is very strong. Credit demand is very strong as well. So somebody's out there with some crazy music, man. I don't get these people. Do you know these people who drive around with all their windows down, blasting their music like as if everybody else on the street wants to hear their shit? I mean, I don't. Like, it's ridiculous. It's a thing. So look, I'll say this. If we turn around here on the market, you know, we're coming up. It's mid-April. May 4th, we're going to get that Fed meeting. We're going to get a rate hike. By the way, Bank of Canada hiked rates 50 basis points today. I'm tempted to short the Canadian dollar. It has been going down. I'm tempted to short it. I'm a little cautious with oil. Let me say something about oil. Today we got the EIA weekly petroleum status report. We saw a 9.4 million build in crude inventories, and 4 million of that was the SPR, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. But that's big. And it put oil inventories up to the highest level in 4 months. We saw another small rebound in gasoline demand. Distillate demand was weak. I'll tell you what was weak. Crude oil exports were weak. However, product exports, refined product exports, were at a record high. They were really, really strong. So it was kind of a mixed bag in that report this week. You had a big increase in crude inventories. You had another decline in gasoline and distillate inventories. You had a rebound in gasoline demand. I think gasoline demand now at a 4-week high. You had a rebound in jet fuel demand. You had a pretty big drop in distillate demand, and you had refiner inputs. That's crude demand by refiners. That was down. And again, weak crude exports and very strong product exports. And the U.S. remains a net exporter of about 1 million barrels a day. That's the 4th week in a row the U.S. is a net exporter. So kind of a mixed bag. I would say like maybe a little bit on the soft side with that crude inventory build, because we're going to continue to see SPR crude release like Biden, the White House said. What was I going to say? Anyway, we're coming up to May 4th is the meeting. No, here's what I was going to say. If I end up being right, and I've been giving you all my reasons why I believe, this market is ready for a big rally. I think the economy is going to be fine. In spite of the rate hikes and the so-called quantitative tightening, which is not a tightening at all. It's a recomposition of financial assets in the economy. It's a positive thing for all the reasons I went through on, my prior, 5, 6, 7, 10 prior videos. You could check them out. If I'm right, I'm like the only one out there who had this right. The only one, because everybody is bearish. Everybody's talking about inflation. Everybody's talking about rate hikes. Everybody's talking about the yield curve, even though the yield curve now is starting to steepen again. We don't have an inversion. Nobody is telling you this, and it's not just me saying, oh, I think it's going to go up. I'm giving you solid reasons for my bullish stance, okay? Reasons that are understood within the framework of MMT. What is monetary policy? What happens when the Fed does these kind of things? I mean, nobody explains that to you. It's just given out there like, it's a liquidity drain. Or, it print money. So I've taken time to explain this stuff to you. And when it turns out right, and also with the banks and the loans, and we'll see as reserve assets come down, as the Fed shrinks its balance sheet. That's another thing. Everybody, the balance sheet, they're going to shrink. will see lending going up. Because the belief is completely in the opposite direction, right? Oh, they're pumping in money. They're going to lend it out. They're pumping. No, it's not how it works. I've been through this so many times. But don't worry, because when it turns out the way I'm telling you, I'm going to be here to remind you. You can count on that. Anyway, that's it for today, folks. Enjoy. See you tomorrow. Bye.